I survived wars, assassins, and a rogue AI. But the day I put on human gravity boots, I almost died in 3 seconds. Alright, listen up. My name is Krell, Senior Combat Specialist of the Victorian 5th Fleet, and I have 17 commendations for tactical excellence. I have survived 3 separate void battles, neutralized a rogue AI on Station Meridian, and once held a defensive position for 6 rotations without sleep. I am telling you this so you understand that I am not some fresh recruit with 0 experience. I am a professional, a decorated soldier, a warrior who has seen things that would make most species quit the military and take up gardening. And yet nothing, absolutely nothing in my entire career prepared me for the day I put on a pair of human gravity boots. You think you know about humans? You think you understand what makes them tick? Let me save you some broken bones and shattered pride. You do not. You really do not. This is that story. So, the Galactic Council, in their infinite wisdom, decided that what the galaxy really needed was a military exchange program. Yes, you heard that correctly, because apparently, watching different species try to kill each other during actual wars was not entertaining enough. They wanted us to train together, build bridges, foster understanding, create lasting bonds between species who, historically speaking, have spent most of their time figuring out which end of a plasma rifle to point at each other. The program was called the Interspecies Combat Readiness Initiative, which is a fancy way of saying, let us see what happens when we throw a bunch of different aliens into a training facility and tell them to play nice. My commanding officer volunteered my squad, did not ask us, did not consult us, just volunteered us like we were some kind of diplomatic gift basket. My squad consisted of 3 other Vexorians, each one cocky enough to make this situation infinitely worse. First, there was Thane, my second in command, who had never met a challenge he did not immediately accept while making inappropriate jokes. Then we had Mira, our tactical analyst, who could calculate trajectory patterns in her head faster than most computers, but had 0 sense of self-preservation. And finally Jorvek, our heavy weapons specialist, built like a cargo hauler and about as subtle. We reported to Station Forge, a massive training complex floating in neutral space, designed specifically for these ridiculous cross-species exercises. The station had adjustable gravity zones, climate-controlled environments, and enough safety protocols to make even the most paranoid species feel comfortable. Or so they claim. The humans arrived on a transport that looked like it had been through a meteor shower. Twice. Their equipment was loaded in crates that were dented, scratched and labeled with what I can only describe as aggressively casual warnings. Fragile, handle with care. This side up or do not. We are not your supervisor. That sort of thing. Commander Banks stepped off the transport first. Older human, graying hair, shoulders that looked like they carried the weight of several planets. He had that expression, you know, the one, where someone has seen so much nonsense that nothing surprises them anymore. Right behind him came Sergeant Lopez, younger, stockier, with arms that suggested she could probably bend our standard-issue rifles into modern art. They did not salute. They did not bow. They just nodded and started unloading their gear like this was another boring Tuesday. We watched them with what I can only describe as amused superiority. Their equipment looked ancient, clunky, over-engineered in the worst possible way. Thane leaned over to me and whispered, "These are the humans everyone keeps talking about. They look like they raided a museum." I had to agree. Nothing about them screamed danger. Commander Banks gathered us in Training Bay 7, a large open space with adjustable gravity plating. He gestured to a rack of equipment that looked like someone had welded metal boots to small starship engines. These were the famous human gravity boots, standard issue for Earth military personnel. "All right," Banks said, his voice carrying that tone of someone who had given this speech before and knew exactly how it would end. "These are Mark 7 gravitational training systems. We use them for conditioning, combat readiness and environmental adaptation. They simulate Earth standard gravity, which is approximately 1.3 times what you experience on most Victorian worlds." Sergeant Lopez picked up a pair like they weighed nothing. She strapped them on with practiced efficiency, locked the magnetic seals, and activated them with a casual tap. Then she proceeded to do jumping jacks, actual jumping jacks, in boots that were supposedly simulating crushing gravitational force. Mira scoffed. 1.3 times? That is barely noticeable. Our atmospheric suits compensate for variations up to 1.5. Jervek laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "Are those really military grade? They look like something a construction worker would wear. Do they come in exciting colors?" Even I could not help but smile. The boots were massive, bulky things with exposed mechanisms and far too many straps. They looked inefficient, primitive, like something from humanity's early space exploration period that somehow never got updated. Commander Banks stopped Lopez and turned to face us. His expression had not changed. Still that flat, knowing look. I am going to say this once, and I want you to listen carefully. These boots are calibrated for humans. Humans who have trained for weeks before using them at full capacity. Humans whose physiology evolved on a high-gravity world. If you want to try them, you are welcome to, but I strongly suggest you start at 20% power and work your way up slowly. Strongly suggest. The way he said it, so calm and understated, should have been a warning. Looking back, it was a warning. A very clear one. But we were Vexorian military specialists with something to prove. And humans were supposed to be the weak ones. The fragile ones. The species that needed extra protection just to survive in standard station environments. I stepped forward. We will take the full experience, Commander. My squad has trained in environments ranging from zero gravity to crushing atmospheric pressure. I think we can handle a pair of boots. Banks nodded slowly. All right then. Lopez, get them fitted. Sergeant Lopez measured each of us and adjusted the boot settings accordingly. The equipment was surprisingly adaptable, expanding to fit our leg structure without issue. Say what you want about human engineering, but they built things to be versatile. Thane was practically vibrating with excitement. How fast do you think I can run in these? I bet I can clear the obstacle course in under 2 minutes. You are going to hurt yourself, Mira said, but she was smiling. She had already pulled up her datapad and was running calculations. Based on the increased gravitational load and our muscle density ratios, we should experience approximately 18% reduction in movement speed, but nothing unmanageable. The real question is endurance over time. Jarvek cracked his knuckles, which was unnecessary and dramatic, but that was Jarvek for you. I bet 20 credits I finished the course before any of you. These humans wear this stuff for training. Please. I wear heavier armor on Susi days. I secured the last strap on my boots and stood up, feeling the weight of them but nothing concerning. They were heavy, sure, but manageable. The magnetic locks hummed softly, indicating they were ready for activation. A small control panel on the side showed power levels, gravity multiplication factors, and a bright red warning label that said, seriously, read the manual first. We did not read the manual. Ready when you are, Commander, I said, probably sounding far more confident than I should have. Commander Banks and Sergeant Lopez exchanged a look, the kind of look that people share when they know something terrible is about to happen and there is nothing they can do to stop it. Lopez actually pulled out her communicator and said something into it quietly, probably alerting the medical team. Activation is a simple thumb press on the side panel, Banks explained. Green button engages the system. Red button is emergency shutdown. The boots will take approximately 3 seconds to reach full power. Once activated, they will simulate Earth standard gravity, which, as I mentioned, is 1.3 times your normal experience. You will feel it immediately. 1.3 times. Barely an increase. We trained in worse conditions regularly. Thane grinned at me. On three, I agreed. Mira counted down. 3, 2, 1. We pressed the green buttons. And that, my friends, is when everything went sideways. The 3 seconds Commander Banks mentioned felt like 3 years. At first, nothing happened. Just a low hum from the boots, a slight vibration through the soles. I was about to make some clever comment about human technology being all noise and no substance when the gravity kicked in. And oh sweet, merciful void, did it kick in. It felt like someone dropped a cargo shuttle on my shoulders. No, scratch that. It felt like someone dropped an entire cargo bay fully loaded directly onto my spine. Every single bone in my body suddenly remembered it had weight. My knees, which had supported me perfectly fine for 32 years, decided right then and there that they were done. Just completely done with existence. I did not fall gracefully. There was no dignified descent. My legs buckled so fast, I did not even have time to catch myself. I went down like a building in a controlled demolition, face first, arms flailing, making a sound that was somewhere between a grunt and a whimper. The floor hit me, or I hit the floor. Honestly, at that point the distinction did not matter because my entire body was screaming at me in languages I did not know existed. I heard Thane laugh. Actually laugh. The idiot thought I had tripped or panicked. Krell, what are you doing down there? Did you forget how legs work? Then his boots activated. The laugh turned into a choked gasp, followed by a spectacular crash as 200 pounds of cocky Vexorian warrior discovered that standing upright was suddenly a theoretical concept, rather than a practical reality. He hit the ground right next to me, and I swear I felt the impact through the floor plating. Mira went down next. She managed to stay upright for maybe half a second longer, which would have been impressive, except she then toppled sideways like a tree and took out an equipment rack on her way down. Jarvek, built like a tank and proud of it, actually managed 3 full seconds of standing. He was so smug about it too. I could see his face, that triumphant grin, right up until his knees made a sound like stressed metal and he collapsed in a heap, cursing in 3 different languages. My chest was compressed, actually compressed. Each breath felt like I was trying to inhale through a straw while someone sat on my ribcage. My arms, normally strong enough to handle standard combat rifles with ease, felt like they were made of wet fabric. I tried to push myself up, managed to lift my torso maybe 3 inches off the ground, and then gravity cheerfully reminded me who was in charge here. I face-planted again. Hard. My vision was doing this fun thing where the edges got dark and sparkly. Not the good kind of sparkly either. The kind that suggested my brain was not getting enough oxygen, and was considering filing a formal complaint. Somewhere above me I heard Sergeant Lopez say, "Yep, right on schedule," Commander Banks replied. "Think they will try to stand again, or have they learned?" "Oh, they will try. They always try." I wanted to protest, to shout that we were trained professionals, and this was just a temporary adjustment period. But shouting required air, and air required breathing, and breathing required muscles that were currently staging a full-scale rebellion against my command. So there we were. 4 elite Vexorian soldiers, decorated veterans of multiple campaigns, lying on the floor of a training bay like someone had turned up gravity to lethal and forgotten to turn it back down. Except gravity was not at lethal levels. This was just Earth normal. This was what humans lived in, every single day, from birth. That thought was somehow worse than the crushing pressure. I turned my head, which took considerable effort, and saw Commander Banks and Sergeant Lopez standing casually nearby. They were not even bracing themselves, just standing there like it was nothing. Because for them, it was nothing. This was their normal. Lopez was actually drinking something from a container. Casually. While gravity was trying to compact me into a singularity. "Obstacle course starts 10 meters ahead," Banks called out helpfully. "Whenever you are ready." 10 meters. 10 meters. I could crawl 10 meters. Probably. In theory. If I did not pass out first. I pressed my hands flat against the floor and pushed. My arms shook. Actually shook like they were made of unstable gelatin. I managed to lift myself maybe 5 centimeters before my strength gave out. But 5 centimeters was 5 centimeters progress. Next to me, Thane was making this continuous wheezing sound that might have been breathing or might have been crying. Hard to tell. He was not moving though. Just lying there, staring at the ceiling. Probably re-evaluating every life choice that had led him to this moment. Mira was trying the calculation approach. I heard her muttering numbers under her breath, trying to figure out the optimal muscle expenditure for forward movement. Unfortunately, mathematics does not care about optimal solutions when your body is actively trying to shut down. Jarvek, stubborn as always, refused to accept defeat. He planted his hands, set his jaw, and pushed himself up onto his hands and knees. Actually made it too. Stayed there for a solid 5 seconds, breathing hard, sweat already pouring down his face. "See?" he gasped. "Not so bad. Just need to push through." He tried to crawl forward. His arms gave out immediately and he face-planted so hard I heard it echo. But give him credit, he tried again. And again, each time managing maybe half a meter of forward progress before collapsing. He was determined. Stupid, but determined. I decided if Jarvek could crawl, so could I. I gathered what remained of my strength, focused on just moving forward, and managed to drag myself approximately 1 meter. 1 whole meter. It felt like climbing a mountain. My muscles were burning, not the good burn from a workout, but the bad burn that suggested they were tearing themselves apart at the cellular level. The humans continued to watch with those knowing expressions. They had seen this before. Probably saw it every time some cocky alien species decided human equipment could not possibly be that difficult. "Water break?" Lopez asked Banks. "Nah, give them a few more minutes. The really funny part comes next." I did not like the sound of that. Not one bit. Thane, to his credit or maybe his stupidity, decided he had spent enough time lying on the floor feeling sorry for himself. I heard him grunt, heard the strain in his voice as he prepared himself mentally for what came next. "All right," he muttered. "Just stand up. Simple. You have done it thousands of times. Just stand up." He gathered his legs underneath him, got his feet planted, and pushed. He actually made it upright. For one glorious second, Thane was standing in Earth gravity, defying the crushing force through sheer willpower and Victorian stubbornness. Then his left leg, which had not agreed to this plan, buckled at an angle that legs should not bend. The crack was audible. Not a small crack, not a gentle pop. A full, loud, bone-breaking crack that made everyone in the bay, humans included, wince. Thane's scream could have powered a small starship. It started low, built to a crescendo, and then just kept going. He went down again, clutching his leg, howling in pain that was very much real and very much justified. "Medical team to training bay 7. Lopez said into her communicator, her voice calm and professional, like she had made this exact call before. Multiple times. Within seconds, a team rushed in with a medical stretcher. Human medical personnel, moving quickly and efficiently while wearing, I noticed with growing horror, their own gravity boots. They operated in Earth gravity like it was effortless, because for them it was. They loaded Thane onto the stretcher, while he continued making sounds that I will not describe here because they haunt me. His leg was bent wrong. Very wrong. The kind of wrong that suggested bones had not just broken but shattered. Commander Banks walked over, looked down at Thane with that same calm expression and said, "We did warn you." Those 4 words. "We did warn you." The most infuriating part was that he was right. He absolutely had warned us. Strongly suggested we start at lower power. Told us humans trained for weeks before using full capacity. We just had not listened, had not believed that humans, weak, fragile humans, could possibly have equipment that would be dangerous to us. Thane was carried out, still screaming, leaving the 3 of us remaining on the floor feeling significantly less confident. "Anyone else want to try standing?" Banks asked, with just a hint of dark amusement in his voice. None of us moved. We stayed right where we were, pressed flat against the floor, trying to breathe and not think about how much our bodies hurt. I reached for the control panel on my boot with a hand that shook badly enough that I missed twice. Third try, I managed to hit the red emergency shutdown button. The gravity released instantly, and the relief was so overwhelming I actually gasped out loud. My body felt wrong. Light. Like I was going to float away. The station gravity, which had always felt perfectly normal, now felt like I weighed nothing. I stood up slowly, testing each joint, making sure nothing was broken or torn. Everything hurt, but in that dull, aching way that suggested deep tissue trauma rather than structural damage. Mira and Jorvek deactivated their boots too. We all just stood there for a moment, catching our breath, trying to process what had just happened. Sergeant Lopez walked past us toward the obstacle course, still wearing her gravity boots, still moving normally. She hopped up onto a raised platform, dropped down the other side, and did not even break stride. It was casual, effortless, like she was taking a morning walk through a park. "Earth," Commander Banks said, finally offering an explanation we desperately needed, "is what the galactic community would classify as a high-gravity death world. 1.3 times standard might not sound like much until you actually experience it. Every human you meet has spent their entire life training in that environment. From infancy, our bones are denser, our muscles are stronger per unit volume. Our cardiovascular systems are built to pump blood against higher resistance. We do not think about it because we do not know anything else." He gestured to Lopez, who was now doing pull-ups on a training bar. "In gravity boots. For fun, apparently. Those boots simulate home," Banks continued. "When we travel off-world to stations like this with lower gravity, we feel light, fast, strong. Not because we are superior, but because we are operating in an environment our bodies consider easy mode. The boots keep us conditioned so we do not lose muscle mass and bone density during long deployments." I watched Lopez complete her 10th pull-up without even breathing hard, and felt something click in my understanding of humans. They were not weak. They had never been weak. They just existed in a state of constant physical pressure that would hospitalize most species. They grew up fighting gravity itself every single day. Their entire evolution was shaped by a planet actively trying to crush them, and they called it home. With affection. "How long," I asked, my voice rough, "do your soldiers train before using those at full capacity?" Minimum 6 weeks of progressive loading, Banks replied. Start at 20%, work up gradually. Even then, some recruits wash out because they cannot handle it. The ones who make it through are stronger for it, but it is not easy. Not even for a... Mira was staring at her datapad, recalculating everything she thought she knew about human physiology. Jarvek was sitting on the floor, still recovering, looking at the humans with something between respect and fear. I thought about every combat report I had ever read involving humans. Their aggression, their endurance, their tendency to simply push through situations that would make other species retreat. It was not bravery or stupidity. They were just used to worse. Living on Earth was harder than fighting in most wars. Commander, I said carefully, I think we need to completely revise our threat assessment protocols regarding human ground forces. Banks smiled. It was not a nice smile. Yeah, you really do. The medical bay on Station Forge was designed to accommodate multiple species, which meant it had variable gravity zones, adjustable atmosphere controls, and enough monitoring equipment to track life signs from beings with anywhere from 1 to 7 hearts. Currently, it was monitoring 3 very embarrassed Vixorian soldiers who had learned an important lesson about overconfidence. Thane was in the serious injury ward. His leg was being reconstructed by a medical team that included, ironically, a human doctor who kept making comments about how lucky he was that Vixorian bones healed faster than human ones. Lucky? Sure. That was the word I would have chosen. Mira, Jorvak and I were in observation beds, getting scanned for microfractures and muscle tears. The diagnosis was not great. I had compressed 2 vertebrae, strained muscles I did not even know I had, and developed what the medical team called severe gravitational stress syndrome, which was apparently the polite way of saying I had tried to operate in an environment my body was absolutely not prepared for. The human medic assigned to us was a cheerful woman named Dr. Patel, who found our situation far more amusing than I thought, was professionally appropriate. She pulled up holographic displays showing our skeletal and muscular structures next to human equivalents. See here, she said, pointing to the bone density comparison. Vixorian bones are lighter, more flexible, great for your standard gravity environments. Efficient, but human bones? She highlighted the human skeleton, which glowed significantly brighter on the density scale. We are basically walking around with reinforced frames, higher calcium deposits, thicker cortical walls. Our bones evolved to not shatter under constant high gravity pressure. She switched to muscular structure. Same story. Your muscles are built for efficiency and speed and lower gravity. Ours are built for raw force generation. A human and a Vixorian of the same size. The human will be physically stronger in most measurements because every single movement we make on Earth requires more force. Jarvek, still looking pale, asked the question we were all thinking. So those boots, the training, how do humans even survive that? Dr. Patel smiled. Progressive adaptation. Human recruits start at 20% boot capacity and increase by 5% increments over 6 weeks. Their bodies adapt gradually. Muscles grow denser. Cardiovascular systems strengthen. Even then, it is boot camp washout rates are high specifically because of gravity training. But the ones who make it through? She shrugged. They can operate in conditions that would flatten most species. And you just live like that, Mira said, her analytical mind still trying to process the data. Every day. Since birth. Every day, Dr. Patel confirmed. We do not think about it. To us, station gravity feels weird. Too light. Floaty. Most humans wear weighted clothing when off-world just to feel normal. Otherwise, we tend to accidentally break things because we forget our own strength. The concept of wearing extra weight to feel normal was so absurd I almost laughed, except I had just experienced what their normal felt like, and it was not funny at all. The boots, I said slowly, are not punishment or extreme training. They are just maintenance. Exactly, Dr. Patel said brightly. Prevent muscle atrophy and bone density loss during deployment. Standard equipment. Every human soldier has a pair. Standard equipment. What nearly killed us was their baseline. I was released from medical observation 6 hours later with strict instructions to rest, stay hydrated, and not attempt any physical activity for at least 2 days. I ignored the last part because I needed to see something with my own eyes. I went back to Training Bay 7. The human contingent was running drills, full combat exercises, while wearing gravity boots. All of them, Banks, Lopez and about 20 other human soldiers moving through obstacle courses, practicing hand-to-hand combat. doing conditioning exercises that looked exhausting just to watch. But they were not struggling. They were not collapsing. They were training, normally. Like this was just another day. I watched Sergeant Lopez run a course that included climbing walls, crawling under barriers, and carrying equipment that probably weighed as much as she did. She completed it in under 4 minutes, in gravity boots. Then she did it again, for practice. A younger human soldier could not have been more than 20 standard years, was doing exercises with additional weight plates strapped to his arms and legs. On top of the gravity boots, he was intentionally making it harder for himself, building strength, Commander Banks said, appearing beside me. I had not heard him approach, which was concerning given his size. That is Rodriguez. He wants to qualify for advanced combat deployment. Needs to pass a fitness test that requires pulling twice his body weight, in full gear, so he trains with extra resistance, twice his body weight, in Earth gravity. While wearing armor, I thought about how humans moved in combat footage I had seen. Fast, aggressive, relentless. It was not tactics or technology. It was simple physics. They trained in hell, so everywhere else was easy. Your species is compact, I said, watching Rodriguez struggle through another set of weighted pull-ups. Shorter on average than Vexorians. I always thought it was a disadvantage. Lower center of gravity, Banks replied. Better leverage. Less material to reinforce structurally. Evolution optimized us for high gravity. Being tall on Earth is actually a disadvantage. More strain on the cardiovascular system. Harder to move efficiently. Every human design choice suddenly made sense. Their stocky builds, their dense muscle, their aggressive, competitive nature. When you spend your entire life fighting gravity itself, everything else is just another challenge to overcome. You wear weighted gear off-world, I said, remembering what Dr. Patel mentioned. Banks nodded. Most of us do. Station gravity makes me feel like I am going to float away. The weights help. Keeps us grounded. Keeps us strong. He paused. Also prevents accidents. You would be surprised how easy it is to accidentally throw someone across a room when you forget you are in 0.6 standard gravity. I watched Lopez finish her third run through the course and immediately start a fourth. She was not showing off. This was just her routine. Her normal. They called their planet home. They called this training. They wore extra weight to feel comfortable. Humans were not the weak species we needed to protect. They were the terrifying species we needed to avoid making angry. Writing the official incident report was possibly more painful than the actual incident. I sat in my quarters staring at the blank document, trying to figure out how to explain what happened without sounding like a complete idiot. Attempt number 1. My squad underestimated human equipment and suffered consequences. Too vague. Command would want details. Attempt number 2. Human gravity boots proved more challenging than anticipated, resulting in injuries. Better, but still did not capture the full scope of how badly we had miscalculated. Attempt number 3. We nearly died putting on human shoes. I deleted that one quickly. Finally, I settled on honesty. Painful, embarrassing honesty. Incident report, Senior Combat Specialist Krell, Vexorian 5th Fleet. During interspecies training exercises on Station Forge, my squad volunteered to test human standard-issue gravity boots. Despite warnings from human personnel, we activated the equipment at full capacity without progressive training. Results were immediate and severe. All 4 squad members were incapacitated within seconds. Specialist Thane suffered significant leg fractures requiring medical reconstruction. The remaining squad members sustained various injuries including vertebral compression, muscle tears, and gravitational stress syndrome. Time to incapacitation, approximately 3 seconds. Time spent mobile in equipment, 0 seconds. Mission effectiveness, 0%. Lessons learned, extensive. I paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard, then added the important part. Recommendation for command review. Current threat assessment models for human ground forces are fundamentally flawed. Analysis is focused on technology and tactics while ignoring basic physiological advantages. Human soldiers operate in conditions that exceed Vexorian tolerances by significant margins. Their standard training equipment alone would serve as enhanced torture devices for most galactic species. This is not hyperbole. This is documented fact supported by medical data. I attached Dr. Patel's comparison charts, the incident logs, and footage from the training bay showing humans casually doing things that had hospitalized my squad. Further recommendation: any future combat scenarios involving human ground forces should assume they possess significant advantages in strength, endurance, and pain tolerance compared to previous estimates. The fact that they evolved on a high-gravity death world is not trivia, it is critical tactical information. They are not fragile, they are not weak. They are compressed springs of muscle and bone who have spent their entire evolutionary history fighting their own planet. We should adjust our threat models accordingly. I read it over twice, made sure I had not understated anything, and submitted it to command. Then I added a personal note at the bottom off the record. Also, never volunteer for human training programs. Ever. For any reason. I do not care if they are offering promotions, bonuses, or eternal glory. It is not worth it. Trust me on this. So, that is the story. That is how I, a decorated Victorian military officer with 17 commendations, got absolutely demolished by a pair of boots. Thane recovered, by the way. His leg healed, though he walks with a slight limp now and refuses to go near anything human-related. Cannot say I blame him. Mira submitted a 300-page analysis on human physiology to the Victorian Science Academy. Jarvek requested a transfer to Deep Space Patrol, preferably somewhere humans would never visit. Me? I finished the exchange program, learned a lot, earned a healthy respect for a species I had previously dismissed, and developed a very specific phobia of gravity manipulation technology. The humans were professional about the whole thing. Did not mock us, did not gloat. Just added our incident to what I suspect is a very long list of similar incidents involving other species who thought they could handle Earth standard conditions. Commander Banks gave me a handshake when I left Station Forge. His grip was firm. Very firm. Probably could have crushed my hand if he wanted to. He did not, which I appreciated. Learn anything useful? He asked. Yes, I said honestly. Never underestimate you people. Ever. He smiled. Good lesson to learn. Most species figure it out eventually, usually the hard way. So here is my advice to anyone in the galactic military who might be reading this. If humans offer to let you try their equipment, politely decline. If they suggest joint training exercises, find an excuse to be somewhere else. If they casually mention that something is standard issue for them, assume it will absolutely wreck you. They are primitive-looking equipment, not primitive. Over-engineered for survival on a planet that actively tries to kill them. Their casual attitude about danger, not bravado, genuine perspective from a species where everyday life is harder than most combat situations. And those gravity boots? Those innocent-looking, clunky, outdated gravity boots. They are not training equipment. They are a reminder that humans are from a world the rest of us would classify as a nightmare, and they call it home, with affection. So yeah, never volunteer for human training. Trust me, I have the medical bills to prove why.